Creative individuals and unethical behavior. And the results were not flattering. One of the studies took participants to two groups, and they identified creative and logical participants. And they asked them to take a math test, and then let them correct their own tests, shred the test without showing it to anyone, and then pay themselves based on the number of correct answers. What they didn't disclose was that the shredder was false, and the researchers would be able to see exactly who had gotten how many correct answers. And the results showed that the creative subset stole like 6 to 10 times more money than the uncreative set. Ouch, yeah, ouch. Oops. So, this set of studies show that in many different circumstances, creative individuals were more likely to engage in morally questionable behaviors. And in fact, thinking outside the box seemed to lead to acting unethically. And a lot of this seemed to be attached to a sort of entitled mindset that creativity is rare, creative people are special. And in fact, it seemed to show that not only were they thinking outside the box, but they believed they deserved a bigger box. Also, ouch. So, I did a little background reading, and it seems that there is some room for creativity and ethics. There is a limit. For those of you who can't read, there are two individuals. Yeah, I started out in creative writing, began dabbling a bit in creative finance and accounting, and before I know it, I wound up here, and he is in jail. So there seems to be a bit of a limit to how creative you can be on an ethical standpoint. So as Megan said, I am Moran. I am an experienced researcher at Project 202. I have an academic background. I have a master's degree in applied anthropology. And in that course, in that set of courses, we had to do a component on ethics in every single class that I took. This doesn't give me the ethical high ground, or mean I'm more ethical than anyone in this room. What it means is that I've been conditioned to actively think about ethics on every project that I am on. So, when you are working in a creative capacity, do ethics ever get in the way? Are they ever not relevant? If you were to cheat on an ethics exam and get an A, is that passing or failing? Let's think of some examples. So I have a friend who, after reading the Harvard Business Review article, self-identified as highly creative and perhaps entitled. And this individual noted that sometimes he might have a little bit of a rough morning and get into work 20, 30 minutes late, but sit down and his brain really brings that A game. And he knocks 2 solutions out of the park right away. Big solves that really further the project and create meaningful good for his work. So you might go to work early, might go to lunch early, take a leisurely lunch, come back, hang out with some coworkers in the kitchen, talk, check some Facebook, and leave at 5. Did he put in a full day's worth of work? He solved the problem he was supposed to solve, but was he working that whole time? What are the ethical boundaries there? What about if you're working and you have a client who says they have a very specific problem, believe they have a very unique situation, who's never had that happen, and they need you to create something for them. And after thinking about it for a little bit, you realize that many years ago, you created something that would be a perfect fit for this client. You created it for someone else, and that person rejected it and totally didn't want it. Can you sell it to this new client? What if all those years ago you created that thing with someone else and you are no longer working with that person? Do you ask them? Do you tell them? Do you pay them for it? And you're the one who found that perfect fit. So what do you do? What about thinking beyond the client, thinking about the end user, the audience, people who maybe aren't directly paying you, taking finances out of it? What ethical responsibilities do you have for those people? What about when client and audience needs differ? What do you do? So are ethics and creativity in conflict? Let's break this down into its component parts. What is creativity? What is a creative person? There was quite a bit of discussion about this online. A lot of things kind of differed. I did find a Life Hacks 20 list of what makes a creative person. Thank you. Right? Not sure that's universally applicable. So let's get a little bit more specific. Let's just go straight to the definition of creativity. Let's look a little closer. So creativity is the ability to transcend traditional ideas to create meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, interpretations, etc. I like the etc. because it sort of implies you need to be creative in order to complete the definition. Let me go back. Oh, sorry. Let's stay here. So what are ethics? Let's think about the definition of that. A lot of people think about ethics and they jump to legal things, but things are very often legal but not ethically sound. And sometimes maybe even the other way around. So definition of ethics will be real simple with this. Recommending concepts of right and wrong conduct. So a lot of people get ethics and morals confused. Ethics tend to be something that is a standard agreed upon by a group. It might be explicitly stated, actually written down and codified, or just sort of more tacitly understood. Morals tend to be more the internal moral compass. They often have a religious component to them. But I will say that ethics and morals belong to the field of philosophy, and many philosophers in many situations will use ethics and morals interchangeably, because when you get right down to the discussion of what should we do, it kind of doesn't matter in most cases. If there are any philosophers here who want to argue with me about that later, I'm happy to do that. But for the most part, they use those two interchangeably. But ethics tend to be held by a group. They're kind of like guidelines. Ethics are, as I said, sort of agreed upon, they're sort of shared, and they may be up for discussion, they may be up for debate. Your moral compass usually isn't. And they're part of, as I said, a group, but it's not always a professional group. It doesn't have to be a codified sort of exact set thing. For example, Megan mentioned I served in the U.S. Peace Corps. I served in Uzbekistan. I taught as a teacher. As a teacher, like a good teacher, I told my students not to cheat. And they said, yes, Miss Kelly, we do not cheat. And then they would blatantly stand up in the middle of an exam, go over to someone else, ask them the question, get the answer, go back to the test again. It was maddening. But in their world, you move with the same cohort, the same classmates throughout life. You will probably be bound to them for as long as you're working. You make your jobs together. And to have the ability to help a friend and deny them that help is ethically wrong. Right? You succeed together. So we had a bit of a conflict with ethics there, different groups, different standards. So there appears that there is some tension. Creativity tends to eschew the traditional and uphold the innovative, right? While ethics often leads towards something we might describe as established or set. Synonyms for ethics include convention and imperative, while synonyms for creative include visionary and inspired. These bring up very different feelings for me. Creativity is very often a disruptor. It's celebrated when it disrupts, while ethics are an upholder. So it seems like having those two qualities within a person at the same time would create a lot of tension. So are creativity and ethics in perpetual conflict? Is there any middle ground? Can we find some way to meet? Well, now that we've looked at the definitions, those kind of set, cold things, let's look at the intention behind the two. Why is someone ethical? Why would you be ethical? People are ethical to make the world gentler, more considered, more thoughtful, kinder. In short, to make the world a more tolerable place to live. Better. Why is anyone creative? Why do we create? To make stuff and have it be there? I would argue that most people aren't creative for evil purposes. Notable exceptions occur. When we are creative, we do so to create something, to create change, to create a difference, to have an impact, to make the world gentler, more beautiful, or more thoughtful, more considered, easier, perhaps, maybe more joyful, exuberant, or maybe just make the world a more tolerable place to be. Better. Now that we've found that middle ground, what responsibility does creativity have to the matter of ethics? I see creative people making ethical decisions all the time. I really enjoy stand-up comedy, and I have found that comedians are very adept at bringing ethical matters into light. They talk about matters of racial inequality, domestic violence, they talk about politics. They really shine that harsh light on the problems of society and make us confront them. I see this in other art forms as well. This is a piece of sculpture. This is a statue of a comfort woman. And for those of you who are not aware, in World War II, Japan often utilized comfort women from surrounding countries. They were forced into service and they were prostitutes for the soldiers. And there are many people who believe that Japan has not made proper acknowledgement, apology, or reparations. And so this is a statue of a Korean comfort woman put outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul, Korea. And I find it rather touching. They put a scarf and hat on her for winter, so she is warm. I find that really beautiful. And this caught on, and there are comfort women statues in many cities around the world, including several in the United States, in New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles. And it's a statement that is catchy, and it was done by creative people. In fact, Emory University Center of Ethics says that the production of art provokes us to confront ethical challenges, to elevate moral discourse. Do you remember this? Let's get back to that. So I told you that the researchers broke the participants into two groups, the creative and the logical. But they actually further subdivided those into a group that they conditioned to feel entitled and a group that they conditioned to feel less entitled. And they found that the creative, entitled group stole 6 times more money than the creative, unentitled group. So really, it's a mindset and not a given attribute of creativity. With this in mind, how do we bring ethics into our work? There are numerous creeds, codes, canons, guidelines, standards, petitions, things you can sign, all of that stuff that's made official and agreed upon by a group. But this group, my advice for you is simply to do better.